Hey guys, my name is Raquel Lily, and today we are going to be editing guitar in GarageBand. GarageBand is just another DAW, or digital audio workstation, that works with your iPad, your Mac, or even in some cases, you can work on it with your iPhone. So before we kick things off, I have my interface that I'm recording through, which is my Focusrite 2i2 Scarlett. I'm also going to be using these headphones so that I'm not picking up any noise through an amplifier, and in any case, we are DIing straight into the box or straight into my interface, which means I'm literally plugging into my electric guitar, going straight into the 2i2. But to be able to hear all that, I'm gonna need some headphones so that it's not leaking into my microphone through my speakers. So I have my DT770 Pros right here. And last but not least, I have a guitar. And today I'm gonna be using my Gretsch Streamliner. So make sure you have the proper cabling. And in this case, I have a 1/4 inch going straight into my interface. All right, looks like you're all set to go, and let's get ready to track. Be sure to check out adorama.com to get the best deals. Whether it's recording video and audio at home, setting up your live stream, or getting some music gear, Adorama has it all. Okay, so assuming you know the basics of GarageBand, you're gonna go ahead and click an empty project. And mostly we're wanting to do a guitar recording today, so you're gonna click the guitar icon and make sure your inputs are correct. In this case, I'm using input 1 and 2. My guitar is plugged into input 1, however, my vocals are input 2. But they're asking specifically for the guitar, so we're gonna leave it at input 1, and you could choose to hear or not hear the instrument. This is something that you can actually choose within the program, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. And also, lastly, you want to make sure that the correct interface is selected. So you click this right arrow, make sure your Scarlett 2i2 USB or whatever you're using is routed properly, and go ahead and hit create. So as you can see, the guitar track is armed. So when I play my guitar, you can see the green bar bouncing back and forth, and that's just telling you that the audio is being picked up by the software. So now that you know that the track is armed, meaning you could record on it, you could either hit the R key on your keyboard, or you could hit this big red record button. Up here, there's a count in, and there is a click track. If you want to play to a certain time, this is where you could play around with the tempo. So you have it here, you just click that, and you can either drag it up and down, or you can manually input whatever it is. So I want to change the tempo, and I do want to play to a click because it'll help me stay in time, especially if I don't have a drum track or another track to play with. So the song I'm doing today is called No Matter What, which is an original tune. I know that it's roughly about 92 in tempo. We're going to keep the 4 count in, and we're going to keep the tempo on so that I could just record a little segment of the song and show you guys how easy it is to track guitar on this with just a click. And then we're gonna go to editing. All right, here we go. Okay, so you see how easy it was to record the guitar just like that. Literally just hit record, plugged in my guitar. So if you find that there was something that was off tune or like off timing, you could always overdub instead of using just one track. So you could just add another track, which if you hit this plus button, or if you right click down here and add new audio track, or if you hit the shortcut option Command A, then you could pull up a new track. And how you make sure that this is the right input is down here. There's a little menu. You want to make sure that your input is in the right place. So you could either go ahead and mute the old track or play on top of it. So if you didn't like the take, let's say you only liked half of it and you want to punch in or record after a certain part, there's an icon on the bottom that pops up that looks like you could either drag it forward or backwards. So you're going to want to go to the bottom, hold with your left click, and go back to wherever you want to stop at. And basically that is comping 101. So one of the basic things you could do is delete sections by dragging them to and from where you want them to be. And you can even mess with timing. I mean, you could drag this forward or backwards or into another track if you wanted, just like this. Super easy to do. All you have to do is just hold and drag. And that is, I would say, 80% of editing guitar on GarageBand. So let's say you didn't like the second half. Going back to this, make sure this track is armed and you want to name this guitar too. And all you do to arm a track is literally hit it with your mouse. You just make sure that it's highlighted. Let's take off the count in because we'll have a good idea of where we are just by listening to this guitar. I do want to keep the tempo on there though. Okay, so let's record. All right, so let's say you really enjoyed your second take of things. You're gonna want to make sure you're kind of splicing or cutting or comping. The proper term is comping. Where you want to end. And a tip that I would give to you here is when you're punching in like this, when you're basically, if you want to record a new track and then take another track and paste it over the old track, I would recommend playing way before you actually need to punch in. Because if you play right where you ended, it sounds kind of unnatural. So keep that in mind. So you could literally just like copy and paste or like drag it up. But the problem is you might shift your file here, which you don't want to do. And in that case, if you're kind of worried about that, or if you don't trust yourself in that you could drag it up, you could always just leave it there. But in this case, I'm gonna drag it up. So as you can see, you could take that bottom corner again and slide the guitar exactly where you want it to start, or you could take your old guitar, do the same thing. And that's basically another technique in comping. So I keep using this word comping, and you might be really confused as to what that means. And all it is when you're taking multiple tracks or editing audio of multiple recordings, and you're pretty much paring it down to one recording. So it's as if you recorded the guitar 5 different times and you chose which takes you liked Frankenstein style and just like cut them up and then put them up in one neat little wave file and pretended that that is how you played it. It's essentially what comping is. It's a really good tool, especially if you're editing music, to comp, because you don't want to start the song over and over again and do like every single part. Because the reality is it's not cheating. There are parts that you play that might have more character, or you like the way it sounded in one wave file versus the other, and that's totally okay. That's the beauty of programs, DAWs like GarageBand, is that you can do this so easily. You can comp so easily, just like this, dragging back and forth. So now that you've comped the tracks together, let's listen to it to see if there are any audio pops, because sometimes when you put a guitar track or any sort of track together, you'll hear like some weird volume differences, or maybe it just sounds like a different take, but there's no way of telling unless we listen back. So let's go ahead and do that. I mean, it didn't sound bad, but there's definitely like some sort of pop there that I want to get rid of. So let's edit this to make it a little smoother. I'm going to take off the click now that we don't really need it. And there's something that you should know called crossfade. So on GarageBand, there is no true way to like shortcut to a crossfade. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do the crossfade. So all a crossfade is you're taking the volume of one track, bringing it down, taking the other track that you're comping with and bringing it up so that there is a clean transition. So yeah, essentially all you're doing is making one piece of the audio audible and then the other part of the audio not so audible. And you're doing this by making this smooth transition in volume difference or gain difference, whatever you want to call it. So how you do that is you go to the top menu, go show automation, or you hit A to toggle that back and forth. A, automation. Really easy to remember. And you're gonna want to fool with the volume. So we're gonna go ahead and drag this track below once more, just so you could see the drastic difference here. And also, by the way, guys, if this screen up top is too small to work with, you could always double click on the tracks to bring them up on the bottom if you don't want to work with such small waveforms. So when you automate, you see a drop down here, and you want to make sure volume is highlighted like so, and it'll bring up this bar. And as you can see, if you click different points on the track, these are called nodes, and you could double click to make them disappear. But basically, you want to create a node where you want the audio to start disappearing and where you want the new audio to start appearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the bottom track forward just so you could see the tracks overlap. They're no longer flush with one another, meaning the cut isn't exactly where one ends and one begins. And that's because we're going to be automating by hand the volume drop. So let's say I don't want to hear the guitar at this point. You want to click here, and you want to start hearing the guitar at this point, so you want to click there. So what you're going to do is you're going to want to drag the volume to the top one down to like 0 past where you want to hear the track. So basically what this line represents is the volume. So it's steady, 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 and then a gradual drop in volume. And then on this side, you know, you basically, you're not hearing anything. So you're going from 0, negative infinity actually, and you're gradually increasing the volume of the second track. So let's see if we hear anything funky in the automation by playing it back and just really listening. So I noticed that there is kind of this like cut, so I'm gonna go ahead and drag that back, and there's just this like weird pop that I'm hearing. So it's getting better. I'm just basically dragging this further back such that we could hear this the bottom track more prominently than the top. And until your ears hear whether or not you fixed it, that's really what you're going by. There's no huge visual cue here that's telling you what's right or wrong. You just have to use your ears and make sure it sounds right to you. So there's a little bit of a double guitar that I'm hearing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep dragging this back until I feel like the automation or the crossfade sounds good. Yeah, so we're almost there. And I'm hearing the old guitar just a little too much to my liking, so we're gonna go ahead and just bring that back a little bit. Perfect, it sounds great. Okay, so now that you know what comping is and what crossfading is, let's talk about EQ real quick and let's talk about effects. Starting with effects. So effects is what makes your guitar sound more interesting than just plugging it straight into the board. Of course, if you like the sound, you could keep it that way. But GarageBand has this wonderful, wonderful tool directly to the left side of your recording. Actually, I'm gonna move my face so that you guys can see this. Okay, now I'm at the bottom right corner of your screen so you can see everything a little bit better. But if you look to the left of where you're recording, there's all these options to choose: clean guitar, crunch guitar, distorted guitar, etc., etc. So depending on what your style is, you could choose whatever style amp you want. So what this is a VST collection, or a virtual studio technology collection. That's all VST stands for. And there are just a bunch of plugins that are preloaded into GarageBand that you could actually just double click and choose to put on your guitar. So let's say you really like, I don't know, cool jazz combo. And these are supposed to emulate certain guitar amps. So this is supposed to be the Fender jazz combo. The Britain Clean is a Vox amp. And you can notice that if you're familiar with amps, it looks just like the model, except the logo is different. So let's go ahead and take clean jazz combo just so you guys can hear the difference. And how it got here is when you start with a blank template like this, go to acoustic guitar or electric guitar, clean guitar. I mean, there are menus full of this stuff, you know? But how I got to it is I went to clean guitar and then I found the cool jazz combo. So as you can see, there's a picture of an amp next to what you're playing here. And that's kind of how you can tell there's a VST on there. Okay, so let's see how that changed things. By the way, guys, something that you should know on GarageBand, when you're clicking through the VSTs or the amp simulators like this, it deletes all your automation. So you want to make sure that you pick something, and then when you're done choosing the sound, you want to make sure that your automation didn't get erased by choosing a new amp. Let's just do that real quick, and I'll show you exactly how fast I could do this. I mean, it's literally just dragging volume back and forth. I mean, that's all a crossfade is. It shouldn't scare you. There we go. Now it sounds pretty streamlined. It sounds like the same guitar being played. Now you could go a step further on playing around with the effects on a guitar. I mean, you could up the gain, make it crunchy. You could change the tone up, and you could play around with this. You could spend hours doing this because there's so many options here on GarageBand. But we're not gonna go through that. Really, this all depends on your stylistic choices. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just whether or not you like the sound. Something that I can talk to you about is the EQ. So EQ is really important because if you want to lay down other tracks, such as vocals, or maybe other tones of guitar, maybe you wanna put like a lead guitar on there, you'll notice that the guitar sits on a frequency range. So if you hit play and you play around with the EQ and drag this back and forth, this is the EQ. Basically, it's telling you which frequency range is being modified. So these little hills and troughs that you're seeing are the frequencies that you're pushing or pulling or modifying. And I'm gonna move myself again so you could see that a little bit better. So you could see down below there are these frequencies. So this is like plus 17 gain, it says down here, frequency of around 500 hertz, and you could just kind of play around with it. Of course, you don't know what it's going to sound like until you play the track, so let's go ahead and make sure the first track is enabled, which is what we're modifying. Do you guys hear how different that sounds? And then if you keep playing, the second guitar track will continue. However, you're not affecting that EQ because it's on a different track. But if you pop them both up on the same track, then it'll be affecting, essentially this EQ is going to be applied to both. But for the purposes of just playing around with it, I just wanted to show you the difference between the EQ. Let's do something drastic, like let's shape this EQ such that it's peaking at like 200 hertz versus just like a steady, this is where your guitar is kind of sitting in range. There's no extreme difference. I just want you to hear the difference. So let's hit play. You see how the first guitar is a little more boxy? Now let's make it super high-end driven. You guys hear that? And it goes back to like the warm, round tone, even tone of what this EQ shape sounds like. So yeah, you guys can sit there and play around with the EQ. Like I said, there's not really a right or wrong way of where this generally needs to be. Where the EQ becomes really important is, like I said, if you're stacking multiple instruments and let's say you have a vocal track that sits at, I don't know, like 500 hertz or so, just saying like right around here, you definitely want to maybe dip the guitar in that area so that it's not stepping on your vocals, and then like raise it up in areas where you really want to hear the guitar shine. And that's really a technique in mixing, which we won't go into today, but just showing you how powerful EQ can be in the mixing realm and how to balance your guitar based on what else is going on in the track. This is a tool that you can absolutely play around with in GarageBand, and it's easy as just clicking on the EQ button and just doing it real quick. So there are a few other things that you could use on GarageBand to edit really quickly. One of the options is reverse playback, so you could literally take the guitar that you played and literally turn the track backwards. So if you hit this button that says reverse playback right here, it'll turn your waveform 180 degrees around. So if you're trying to like make a Beatles tune, there's a button for that called reverse playback. Other things here, you could pitch correct your guitar. Let's say your guitar is out of tune. You could either limit it to the key or enable flexibility, and the program's gonna detect the pitch correction. And you could do this to an extreme, so you could take this bar and push it back and forth. And because I do a lot of slides, it's kind of sounds funky. In this particular case, like I wouldn't use a pitch correction, but maybe you're playing a solo and you maybe hit a note a little off and you know what the key is, or you don't know what the key is, so you want to enable the flexibility for the computer to figure out and learn what the key is. This is really helpful. If you click over here in region where the reverse playback is, you can quantize this, meaning, so quantize, what is it? You probably heard what it is before. You probably have seen people do it. And it's basically a method by which the sound is processed such that it falls more in line with the beat or the overall rhythm of the track. So basically you're manipulating the timing of notes or whatever it is in the track that you're trying to change. You want to fix the notes in quarter notes. So it'll split the track into quarter notes so that you can manipulate where you want to change the timing. So let's just do something dramatic. My timing wasn't too bad, but let's just like say that it was super crazy bad. So I'm just dragging random tracks just to show you the power of the quantize button. So let's just play it from here. You see how it's dragging the note out? It sounds crazy. It's super powerful. I mean, if you didn't play something in time. And another cool thing under region is you can actually transpose, meaning change the key of your song. There's so much more to editing in GarageBand than these basic techniques, but I kind of just wanted to show you an intermediate breakdown of how to manipulate guitar or track guitar, and as you can see, just the possibilities are pretty endless. The thing that you track doesn't always have to be the way it sounds. I mean, there's an infinite amount of possibilities here you could play with. You could even add more plugins. So let's say you don't have pedal boards and you want an echo on it. You could add that by just hitting this menu, echo, and just playing around with the echo. You could also add a noise gate, or, you know, just, there's so many things that you could do to manipulate and edit guitar with. And all it really takes is for you to just play around with it. If you are intimidated at all with GarageBand, I promise you, all it will take is for you to watch tutorials like this and really just play around with it on your own time to make sure that you are understanding the DAW or the program. And every DAW is like this. You just play around with it, you learn more, you gain knowledge, and you stack that knowledge, and that's all it takes. That's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial on how to edit in GarageBand. If you have any suggestions as to what tutorials you want us to tackle, or if you want to learn anything else within the world of DAWs or anything at all, please leave a comment down below. We'll be sure to try and tackle those in the future. And in the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, my name is Raquel Lily. See you guys later.